What is going on, everybody? It's Hunter with LS Lures here. It's another Tackle Talk Tuesday, and today we're going to be talking about something that I think is really effective. It's really interesting. It worked great for me yesterday when I went out, and I don't think a lot of people do it nowadays. I think now, with the way the world works, and the way everybody's in such a hurry, and the way that LiveScope works and stuff where you can just zip around and whatnot, I think everybody wants to fish fast. I love to fish fast. I wish I could fish fast every day of the week, and I fish my jigs fast, and I do a lot of things fast, but I get a friendly kick in the face every now and then that's not always the best way to do it, and I did yesterday. Slowed down, went back to the old school roots of jig fishing, and absolutely tore them up. So today we're going to be going over a couple different things revolving around dead sticking a jig, with the first one being where to do it, why you would do it, how the fish act to kind of let you know you should be doing it, and then last but not least, my absolute favorite jig to do this with. So come along. It's going to be a pretty quick video. I'm not going to ramble too much today. I'm going to try not to, and we're going to dive into it. All right, y'all. So kicking this off, in terms of dead sticking a jig, for those of you who don't know what dead sticking a jig is, if you don't know what dead sticking is, it's just not moving the bait. It's exactly like it sounds. You're not shaking it. You're not dragging it super fast. You're not giving it big hops. The biggest thing with dead sticking is I'm going to move that jig a little bit, and then I'm going to go look at a bird, or I'm going to stare at my live scope, or I'm going to check my phone. You know, like you're letting it sit for an extended period of time. Not 30 seconds, but say 5 to 10 seconds, sometimes more, sometimes less. You're just not actively moving it. That bait's sitting on the bottom, it's not doing anything. If you have a buoyant trailer that's sitting there, rubber skirt, it's doing its thing. But either way, the jig is not moving, okay? And it's a super effective way when fish get pressured. It's a super effective way to get bit when they're super sluggish. It's just a great way to catch fish that have been beat up. So like dead sticking is really good when you've been through an area a couple of times, you've beat up on the fish, or you're fishing behind people that are burning pretty quick. You can fish a little bit slower and generally pick up a couple more of those fish that they pitched in there, they hopped it really fast and they swam it out, and that fish was just coming down to it and it swam off, and they were like, well, shoot. And then you come and pitch your cricket in there, you throw your LS Midwest flipping jig, and it lands on their nose, and they're like, hey, another thing showed up, and they start swimming down, and instead of you sitting there and shaking it like crazy and then burning it back, you just let it sit there for a couple of seconds, and that way that mosier, or whatever you want to call them, can slowly work their way down, pick that jig up, and then you crack them, you know. But dead sticking is a super easy way. It's not the most exciting way sometimes, but it flat out gets bit. So there's that. As far as the best places to do it, I don't typically dead stick unless I know there's fish in the area. So if I know there's fish in an area, like I've been getting bites, I see them on LiveScope, I'm in a traditionally good area, you know, if it's a local hole, you know there's always fish there, and you're fishing through it and you can't get bit, it's probably time to slow down, right? Either switch profiles or slow down, whatever. But if I know there's fish there, dead sticking is a super effective way. It's also a really good way to catch fish if you're fishing high percentage areas. So if there's one floating dock, right, that like always has one on it, or it's different than all the rest of them, or it's on a point, or whatever it may be, or you're fishing a brush pile or a rock pile or whatever, right? High percentage areas where there's generally going to be a high population of fish, or there's always a fish or two on it, you know, just those kind of honey holes where you're like, yeah, we might as well stop, there's always fish here. Well, if everybody always stops and fishes them, those fish get beat up. Dead sticking is another great way, because again, everybody and their grandma's in a hurry, including myself generally. So slowing down, letting that jig sit, and letting them just stare at it, because again, if most anglers are sitting there really shaking or burning or like in a hurry to go get those bites, and you mosey on through, I mean, the slower you go, generally the more bites you're going to get if those fish are really beat up and they're not looking to chase anything. So those are really good. Those are the best places. I don't typically like to go dead stick when I'm looking for fish, because again, unless you know you're in an area that's going to be good, you just waste a lot of time. You know, generally you can pick up a couple bites and say, okay, there's something, like I think there's a lot more fish here, and then go back through and catch them. So I'm done rambling about that. I think you guys get the gist. Just dead stick in areas where you know there's fish. As far as determining whether or not you should dead stick, it's kind of an experimental thing, right? So when you're going down a bank and you catch a couple flip in, or you're dragging a rock pile and you're hopping it and you're like, man, we're going to pretend you don't have LiveScope right now. You do not have LiveScope. You cannot see the fish, right? If you know they're there, right? Sometimes you just have that gut feeling, or you're like, man, I just feel like there's more fish in this area. You know what? For whatever reason, if there's a ton of bait, if you caught a couple really easy, but you're like, man, I'm just struggling to get bites, but I know they're here, that's a good reason. If you're bank fishing and you're in an area that's been traditionally good and all of a sudden it's not, or if you're really beating up on them and you're like, okay, I'm going to come back for the 4th day in a row or 4th time this week or 3rd time, whatever, and the bite has gotten progressively harder, try dead sticking. Like, it seems like, the more beat up those fish are, or if they're in a weird feeding mood, or if you're in an area and they just stop biting all of a sudden, this can be a really good way to like, okay, I know they're here. You just confirm that, right? Another thing is if you're flipping, but you can dead stick while you're flipping. If I'm going down a bank and I'm like, man, these look too good, or it's the only cover in this whole area that they should be on, and the water, like the water's muddy, like I know they're here. That's the biggest part of that, is just kind of getting that sixth sense of, I know there's fish here, like how am I going to catch them, right? I go through a ton of different rotations when I'm flipping. I rotate until I figure out exactly what they're going to be doing, right? And it looks kind of weird on paper, and if you're watching me, it's strange because I will flip a jig to a spot and swim it out, and then I'll flip and hop it really quick. And then if I flip a couple trees and that doesn't work, I'll flip it in there and give it bigger hops, because sometimes it just takes that reaction of it hits the bottom and then shoots away really quick and they just have to come get it, and those bites are a ton of fun. And sometimes, again, if I know they're there, if there's no other cover in the area, if that's the only thing they should be on because the water's muddy and you know they're going to be on the bank and you're just not getting bit, then it gets time to slow down. If all of my standard retrieves that are quicker won't work, slow down, put that jig on the bottom, pitch it in there, and let it sit for a couple seconds. And you're going to have to turn your trolling motor down, or stop paddling your kayak or doing whatever you're doing, and just let it sit, and then slow drag it a little bit and let it sit. And you'd be amazed at how many times that those fish are going to be somewhere around that cover and they will not eat it if it leaves the ground. But the second you just kind of sit there and crawl it out, you'll see your line just start to swim off. And then you crack them and you go to the next tree, and you can go back through your whole area the second you figure that out, of like, man, they're not doing what I thought they were going to be doing, you know? And then you can slow drag that jig and just let it sit there. And oftentimes, depending on the day, if they're really sluggish, you're not even going to feel them. You just watch your line and it just starts to swim off and you jack the shit out of them. So that is a really effective way. That's the best way without live scope, is you just have to generally know, due to the forces that be at hand, right? Of like, okay, the weather lines up, the water lines up, like they're probably not in a very active feeding mood. If the sun's high and you got bluebird skies, yeah, sometimes it's not the best day to go ripping around, you know, like you just can't cover as much water, you have to slow down. And then if you're targeting high percentage spots and you're just not getting bit, sometimes the best thing to do is nothing at all. You just sit there and watch your line and wait for that little tick, you know? So that's without live scope. That's from the bank. That's from a boat, that's from a kayak. If you don't have scope, you just got to know, and you got to experiment around with it. And when it's good, it's good. As far as when you do have live scope, this is a great example. I went out yesterday. I was fishing around at a lake that my buddy said it's stupid good minnow lake. It's awesome. Go out there. It's going to be great. Start flicking around a minnow. They were just not acting right. Probably could have grinded it, but was like, you know what? We're going to go play around with a couple other stuff. Started fishing some wood, fished it fast, didn't really get bit. Started dead sticking that jig a little bit. Picked up a couple, fishing like real slow around them. Went, you know, that's interesting, right? So went back out to some of those fish that we saw on scope, threw the jig over their head, and none of them wanted to chase that minnow. You would swim it by them real slow. You do whatever, right? You check all the boxes on that. And we're fishing 10 to 14 feet of water. It's a big, deep grass line. It's got some bushes and stuff, or not bushes, brush piles and stuff down there. And they would turn on it and they would follow a couple feet behind. They were in no mood to come up to it. And I was like, okay, we got to change something here. So as far as kind of realizing and putting those puzzle pieces together, if they are not wanting to chase anything, and you can see that it doesn't matter how slow you swim your minnow, they're not going to chase it, right? Maybe it's time to do something else. So went back through that same area with a jig and basically just put on a tiny clinic for a little bit with them right before the sun went down, where every single fish we saw, if you drop that jig right down on its head, they would follow it to the bottom real slow. And they might be delayed, right? Some of them took their sweet time where that jig would fall past their face. Some were suspended, some were sitting right on top of the grass. But that jig would fall past them. And if you just didn't do anything, they would slowly make their way down to it. And then the key was you couldn't shake it, couldn't move it, couldn't hop it. You didn't do anything. They wouldn't eat it. You'd watch them just lose interest and swim off, right? So if you just sat there and watched your line, these fish would mosey on down, and they'd sit there for a bit, and then you'd either see your line jump, or you'd lift up, and it'd be spun, like they would just have it. They weren't thumping it, they were just picking it up. And you'd crack the whip, reel them in, and go on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And we just caught almost every fish that we saw. Like, if you made the right cast and put it on it, and didn't move it, they were gonna swim right down, they were gonna pick it up, and they weren't gonna shoot away with it. They were just gonna pick it up and sit there because they were not in any mood whatsoever to chase or to hunt, like to do anything, right? They just wanted the easiest thing possible, and that was it. So if you're watching fish on scope and you're sitting there and you're like, they're being dumb, right? Like, I can't, like, they're not wanting to chase. I'm hopping my jig past them. They're not doing it. As long as you can put it on their head, and you got to watch, right? Like, that's the biggest thing, is just trying to act like the fish act. If they're acting sluggish, don't burn it. Don't do anything like that. Like, just put something on them, and if they follow it down to the bottom, don't move it and see what they do, right? Like, you'd be surprised, I think, at how many fish, and we've done it last year during a couple tournaments too, where you'd pan over and see a bunch of fish and they wouldn't chase anything. They were just sitting there. If you put a jig on them and didn't move it, rock piles, brush piles, whatever, pretty soon, see your line just go dunk, and then it'd start to tick off, or you'd just see it start to swim and you'd crack them. And we caught a bunch of good keepers doing that. So dead sticking a jig is super effective. You just have to play around with it. You can't be afraid to do it, and it's a great way to pick up a lot of fish that typically wouldn't eat. And last but not least, guys, I've rambled a ton in this video, but it's Tackle Tip Tuesday. I appreciate you guys all being here. We're gonna talk really quickly about my favorite jig to kind of do this with, and that is our Lil Wizard jig. It is a super goofy, derpy looking thing that is absolutely awesome. It tears them up. It's got a really thin skirt on it. It's got these two little finesse wings, a tiny finesse cut, but it's a very low strand, easy jig. It's not intimidating, it's not big, it gets bit all the time, and it catches absolute giants because it doesn't present, it's not very bulky, it's a super easy meal. And if they're already slow and sluggish and stuff, and this little ratty thing kind of falls past them, it's just an easy meal for them to go down and pick up. It's not hard, it doesn't put up a fight, like, it's the smallest little thing. You guys are also gonna get a sneak peek of something that's pretty exciting. We're coming out with a Big Wizard jig. So for you guys, this is what we caught them all on yesterday. We're fishing greenheads. For you guys who like fishing largemouth, up north, down south, wherever, this is the same jig. It's the same skirt cut. It's the same everything, except this one has a 4/0 hook in it, and this one's got a 2/0. So if you're in smallmouth country, or your fish are really pressured, or you want to throw a really small trailer, the Lil Wizard jig is an awesome option. It's got a 2/0 hook. They're freaking awesome. They come in a 2-pack, super dangerous. And then coming out in the next couple weeks is going to be the Big Wizard jig. We have put this thing through the ringer. It's got that 4/0 hook on there, so you can put a full-size trailer on the back if you want. So again, if you're targeting greenheads and stuff, you can put a full-size trailer and still get that hook extension out so that you don't have over half your trailer out there without any hook on it like you would have with the Lil Wizard there. So you can have a bigger trailer with a really thin skirt on there still. Very, very good action on this. The wings have that long extended action. The front has that quick shaky, and they get bit a ton. So check those out. Keep an eye out for the big drop on the Big Wizard. We'll drop a whole video on it here soon, but it's been catching a ton of fish for us around here. It's super deadly. That Lil Wizard we have in a bunch of different colors on our website in stock right now. Check them out. And guys, the biggest thing, I'm done rambling. Tackle Tip Tuesday is coming to an end, but if they're there and you know they're there, don't be afraid to slow down. Watch your line. You're not hurting anything by sitting there. And when that line starts to swim off, or you see that little tick, absolutely crack the whip on them. And I guarantee it's going to help you catch more fish this year. It's going to help your buddies catch more fish, and just generally make those hard, tough days on the water that you're like, I don't know what we were doing wrong, a lot better. So make sure you like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys all watching, and we'll see you next week.